Coming to you from the TheEoNProject Studios, perched high atop the banks of the majestic Blackstone River. Greetings from the jewel of the Blackstone Valley. You're listening to Experts of Nothing with Mike and Jay. Hey, Mike.
Hello there.
Hey, what do you think of that intro music, by the way?
I enjoyed the intro music a lot.
You know, that's a song that I created many years ago.
You made that?
I did make that with a former Marine friend of mine.
Cool.
We got together because he's a musical friend as well.
Yeah?
And his younger brother played the drums. We came up with the music, and we came up with the name also. It's called Jabberwocky.
Jabberwocky.
And there's actually words that go with it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I trimmed some of the intro off.
Isn't Jabberwocky an actual, like a poem of some kind?
Yeah, and that was courtesy of another individual who said that we should call it, so that's what we did. So for the show...
And it met with commercial success.
Not really, but it's a good song, I think, because, of course, I helped write the song.
Actually, I did hear some feedback about the song.
Really?
Yeah, one of the listeners said it sounded very mysterious.
Well, you know what I did with the song when I knew that we're going to be doing this show is I actually took the song and it's called Jabberwocky 2.0 now because I added some other, like 3 or 4 other guitar parts to kind of add that little other bit to it. So that's where that came from.
Wow. Well, thank you for that extra special little glimpse into your musical background.
Well, I want to tell you, I'm pretty musical.
I'm very upset with you right now. As a matter of fact, I'm feeling very jealous.
What's the matter?
Well, I'm looking over there. You have a microphone.
I do.
And I have a microphone. We have separate microphones. We're not talking into the same microphone. But your microphone is like a deluxe, retro 1950s DJ model.
That's the look I'm going for.
And mine is like this. I don't know what mine is. Mine's just regular plain Jane.
Can I be honest with you, though? Sure. I think, in all honesty, I've recorded with both of these mics. Yours sounds better than mine.
Well, you have like the Rush Limbaugh of microphones over there.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it looks deluxe.
And you know what? You've contributed nothing to the audio to the audio section of the show.
That's true.
Aside from your
voice. Except for my voice. Well, we did have a musical number last week.
We did, and of course that episode hasn't been released yet, but it will be released momentarily.
And the authorities will be coming for me.
Probably copyright infringement, I think.
Yep.
Oh, anyway, good.
Oh. Well, we had an interesting week of things.
Yeah, what did we talk about last week before we talk about this week?
Last
remember?
Week, yes. As a matter of fact, last week was a musical mystery show.
It was. That's right. Rock and roll mysteries and such.
And we talked about a couple of conspiracies, a couple of weird history things related to music. And coincidentally, after our show, I caught a documentary on Netflix, which I love, about rock and roll history. But it was a BBC produced documentary, so everything was related to Great Britain and bands and whatnot. And it was some stories that I hadn't heard of involving Rolling Stones, a couple of things involving the Sex Pistols.
Interesting. We talked a little bit about, I want to go back to the British thing here in a second, but just before I forget, so we talked about the 27 Club, obviously.
Yep.
And one that I didn't mention that was actually pretty recent was the Amy Winehouse.
Oh, yeah.
She passed away a few years ago. She was also 27 years old.
She changed her name to Winehouse.
Yes, I know what. Yeah, that's right. She did. Anyway. But, talking about the British aspect of it, I find maybe this is a past life. Who knows? Maybe this goes back to the past life thing. I find I get I have an overwhelming sense of confidence when I'm watching something. So, I play a little guitar. So a lot of times I go on YouTube and I try to find a guitar tutorial. And when I find a guitar tutorial, I listen to it. And as soon as I hear that it's an English person that's teaching me the guitar, I suddenly feel fulfilled. Well, I suddenly feel like I feel more confident in the fact that he's going to teach me something that's correct.
Well, that's not you. That anytime someone has a British accent, they sound more believable, more trustworthy.
Really?
That they know what they're talking about. Well, not just, not the uneducated Cockney accent.
The what?
The Cockney accent.
I'm not sure what that means.
Like this, governor.
Oh.
So the uneducated, like that.
Ah, I see.
Not that so much.
You want to talk more like you know what you're talking about.
Like that?
That was like a mix of Canada and...
That sounded more like Paul McCartney. I don't know.
No, but I've had we'll talk about my acting experience in another episode, but I had the privilege of working with some British actors, Americans of British descent, and they just automatically sound way better. Everything they do.
They sound, it just projects better, and it sounds more intelligent,
authoritative.
It doesn't matter what you're talking about. You can talk about suppositories, and it would sound interesting.
Which we did.
All right,
but Anyway, so that explains what we did last week.
Sure.
So this week we got a couple of different things. But before we get into the topics today, I wanted to discuss something with you that I just learned on my way over here.
On your way over here?
Yeah, I hurriedly jotted down some notes.
While you were driving? That's dangerous.
I waited for a red light. So,
okay.
I want you to search back in your memory banks for this. May 16th, which is today. Right?
Yep.
May 16th, year of our Lord, 1986. 31 years ago today.
Yes.
Something happened that would change the course of humanity forever.
May 16th, 1986.
Yep.
Was this a local story or a national story?
National. World. Nay, world.
World story.
World story. May 16th, 1986. I won't keep you in suspense.
Okay.
The seminal classic Top Gun was released into theaters. So making it okay forever for heterosexual males to play volleyball with no shirts on.
True. And to sing I Ain't Got That Lovin' Feeling or whatever that song. The Unchained Melody? What was that? What was
No.
What am I thinking?
What
was the big musical number?
You lost that Lovin' Feeling by the Righteous Brothers.
Correct.
That's not Unchained Melody.
No, Unchained Melody was the Righteous Brothers as well.
Yeah, that was from Ghost, I think.
Okay.
Right?
I'm confusing my my ballads.
Anyway, well, Top Gun, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like Top Gun had a huge influence on my childhood.
It was, because most people don't realize this, but Mike is an F-14 fighter pilot.
I was not an F-14 fighter pilot.
Wasn't.
However, I've thrown up on just about every aircraft that the United States arsenal has.
I see.
Except for a jet. I have not been on a jet fighter.
No?
No. But I believe I would throw up if I was on one.
You know, that was a definitely a classic movie of the 80s. You know, it was in the midst of the Cold War, so the whole
the
Russian
Soviets
theme,
were the bad guys.
The Soviets, absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, I just thought it was a cool movie. They had cool nicknames. I always wanted to. You know what? If we were in that movie, who would be Maverick and who would be Goose? I think I would be Maverick.
I think you'd be you would be. I need a new name for you. Meatloaf. No, there already is a Meatloaf. I don't know. But anyway.
Anyway, that was a good one. So
good. Yeah,
I just wanted to bring up that piece of movie lore.
All right, so this week we have a couple. We have
we're heading over to the other side of the world.
Actually, let me back up just a second. So we have had some listener feedback. Some of it positive, most of it positive actually, and some constructive criticism, I will say. And we from one particular listener who said that we should maybe concentrate more, since we only do an hour. I guess we could do more, but
we can do whatever we want.
We don't want to lose people's interest. But he said
too late.
That we should probably concentrate on one topic for the specific hour. And
yeah, we could do that.
We could do that, but I kind of like to break it up and change it up, because we can always revisit these topics later and get more in depth if we needed to.
Or maybe we focused on topics that were related somewhat, even though they may be different. At least they have a similar thread to them.
Sure.
You know. Yeah, I had a couple of listener feedbacks as well, and they asking for specific shows, and we're going to try to get to just about everybody's requests whenever we can. I know we had a couple of people asking about alien shows, and I know that we're going to do an alien show or two here and there.
We actually have a guest that has already or an individual who's already contacted us and wants to be a live guest on the show.
He's not an alien, is he? I don't want an alien.
He very well could be.
He's
into some strange things, but he wants to talk a little bit about the alien aspect and has a different approach or a different perspective on the whole thing. So we'll probably have him in here shortly and talking about that.
He's going to be here live, huh? Well, live on the podcast.
Exactly.
Which
yes.
is different.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna move to the other side of the world for this episode. We have stories taking place in Russia and Germany, respectively. Right?
That's correct. Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna go first, I think.
All right, go for it. What do you got?
I want to set the scene for you guys. Okay. January 1959. What were you doing in January 1959?
I was yet to be conceived, my friend.
Oh. Northern Russia near Siberia.
That's cold up there.
It's far. Well, first of all, it's January, and it's in Russia near Siberia.
Who'd want to be in Siberia in January?
These guys.
Or June, for that matter.
The people we're going to talk about.
All right.
So a group of 9 hikers, 7 men and 2 women, embarked on a skiing/hiking journey into the Ural Mountains. This was an experienced group of wildernessers, which is not a word.
Wildernessers?
Yeah, wilderness. How about wilderness enthusiasts?
There you go. There's a lot of those these days.
Yeah, I'm not a wilderness enthusiast.
Mr. Brown Shoes is.
Mr. Brown Shoes, I did not have any interactions with Mr. Brown Shoes this week. Although, there was a Mr. Blue Shoes, who I did find in the bathroom several times this week, and I'm going to have a word with his supervisor and or HR.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, so getting back to the group of 9 hikers, 7 men and 2 women. What lucky women.
You know, the men always outnumber the women, it seems.
7 men, 2 women embarking on an adventure out into the wilderness.
Oh, that sounds like a good show.
Yeah, I've seen movies that started that way. Anyway, so this was an experienced group of people, led by a guy by the name of Igor Dyatlov. Igor. That's a pretty quintessential.
Are you sure it's not pronounced Igor?
It may be pronounced Igor.
You must be Igor.
So
No, it's pronounced
this incident that I'm going to
Igor.
describe was later to be known as the Dyatlov Pass or Dyatlov Pass,
Dyatlov. That's how you
named
say it.
after this guy Igor Dyatlov, who was the leader of this expedition.
Okay.
So this guy Igor had many such trips under his belt, and from all accounts, he was not a newbie. He was an experienced guide, and all the people that he was taking with were all college age people, but were experienced hikers and skiers and adventurers in their own right.
So they all knew kind of what they were doing.
Sure, they were all experienced, fit people. I've run across in the research "fit" many times, so apparently they were all fit.
Oh.
Which I don't know what that means, but anyway, they're out for a wilderness adventure, and they found adventure all right. Maybe not the right way.
Oh. So they were. So they were obviously geared up. They were ready for this.
That's a great point. Yes, they had all the accoutrement, which is the second time in a row on this show
used
that I've
that
used
word
that
already.
word, which
Yeah.
I love the word. So yeah, they geared up. They went on a they met at a village. Excuse me. You know how like when you go on a long trip, sometimes you have like a final, like a resting place. Make sure your gear's all set.
Exactly.
You get all the right provisions and stuff like that. So they made it to a village.
Much like the when you go to climb Mount Everest, you go to the little
Yeah,
Sherpa
that's exactly
village.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What is a Sherpa? Is that a person?
No, it's like the native persons of the Mount.
It sounds like an animal.
No, it's a Sherpa.
Yeah, look at that herd of Sherpas over
And
there.
they guide you up the mountain. If it
knows?
wasn't for the Sherpas, you'd be in trouble.
You know, I'm not going there.
All right.
Anyway, so actually there were 10 hikers until they made it to this village. One of the hikers had to turn back, which is why we know a lot about what happened up to this point, because one of the hikers hurt his back and had to turn back and wasn't able to make the trip. So they made it to this village. They geared up, and soon after they started on their way to their destination. They disappeared completely.
Like from, what do you mean disappeared?
Well,
like,
they were overdue. So let's say this
they
is
were
the day
supposed to
before.
check in at some point.
Yes, so they were supposed to be going on a several-day journey to this mountainous region. They were going to hike around. They were going to come back. They didn't come back, but due to the weather, a search party couldn't be sent out until weeks later, as you know. Well, first of all, they had to be long enough overdue that someone would notice that they were missing.
Right.
And then they had to wait for the weather to clear and so on and so forth.
Because obviously rescue efforts are, like back then, are not what they are today, of
Right.
course.
Well, they did have helicopters and stuff. I guess it was 1959, but they weren't in wide use, as you know, outside of the military. So months later, searchers went out and actually found 9 of the hikers, all 9 of them dead.
Oh.
But it was the manner in which they were found that makes this story really weird and really creepy. So it's become known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Yes.
So basically, here's a scene when the searchers found the campsite. So the tent that the group had been using was found still standing and buttoned up, but the sides of the tent were shredded, as if by some sort of...
Like an animal of some kind.
Well, that's what they thought initially. So investigators said that the sides of the tent had been slashed with knives, but from the inside.
Oh. So they were trying to get out.
Correct. None of the bodies were found in the tent, and left behind in the tent were warm clothes, boots, and other items that would have been necessary to survive in the sub-zero temperatures. They said in that time of year it was about between 20 and 25 degrees below zero out there.
So let's take a step back for a second.
Sure.
So they were all found outside,
Yes.
perished.
Yes.
Cuts from the inside,
Yes.
and all their cold weather gear was on the inside
That's
of the tent.
correct. So the investigators determined that something frightened the people so badly that they slashed through their only means of shelter and left all of their equipment behind to escape into the snow. They actually, we'll get to the individual conditions of them in a minute, but they were all found with no shoes. So if you're in the wilderness, in the snow, in Siberia, in January, you think you would probably want your shoes.
I think the first thing I'd grab would be my shoes.
You would think so.
Because I don't like putting my bare feet in the cold
No, we talked
snow.
about feet before.
We did. We said toe, and I don't like to say the word
No, but you said it again.
toe.
It's important to note that investigators didn't find any outside tracks that were not believed to be made by the hikers. So no animal tracks, no people tracks that were not directly related to the hikers. I call them hikers, but they're kind of skiing.
Adventurers.
Yeah, adventurers. That's a good one. So they find the campsite. They find the disturbing evidence that they slashed their way out of it. So they start concentrically circling, looking for the people. That's how you
like
would
the
do it.
typical search pattern.
Sure. So down the slope from the campsite, several hundred yards away, 2 of the people were found dead in the snow next to the remains of a campfire. their hands and feet showing signs that they had been burned, like they were shoving them into the fire for warmth. Scary.
That's, you're really cold when you want to burn your hands like that.
Right. They had no shoes and no warm clothes on, and it was determined that they died of hypothermia. Okay, so kind of creepy so far, right? But not really.
It's, you're in the wilderness. Could be anything.
Could be anything. So separate from this group, several hundred yards away from that, 3 more were found dead of hypothermia in the same type of condition. No warm clothes, no shoes. But these 3 appeared to be making their way back to the camp when they died. So they found 2, 4. They found 4 of them. No, they found 5 of them. But the remaining 4 were nowhere to be found. Mm-hmm. So now there's some, believe it or not, there's some reason for the shedding of the clothes. Have you ever heard of a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing?
Yeah, actually, it happens to me quite frequently when I've had too much scotch.
Yes.
And then I wander around the neighborhood, and frequently I am arrested.
Unrelated. So what happens in about 25% of hypothermia cases, the hypothalamus malfunctions and body temperature seems to be rising when it's actually dropping. Hence, people take their clothes off. So something glandular happens.
I could see that.
And so they take their clothes off because they think they're overheating, and they're actually
they feel like they're getting hot.
Correct.
So they need to disrobe.
Right. So they take their clothes off, and it hastens death. Obviously, you don't have any clothes on anymore.
Sure.
So that aside, that's the least creepy part of this story, because they were still missing 4 hikers. Mm-hmm. Months later, not until May, when the snow melted, the remaining 4 bodies were found. These bodies were not anywhere near the others had been found, and these all had signs of horrific injuries, although there were no external wounds on the bodies.
No external wounds.
No, so it appeared to the investigators like it was they likened it to a car crash, where there was a serious concussive force where internally you'd be all banged up and smashed up and mushed up,
exactly.
But there's no external force.
Sure.
Or excuse me, no external wounds like cuts or anything.
So nothing obvious to the eye.
Right. So one of the skiers or hikers or adventurers, Ludmilla, one of the only females.
Oh. She
was age 20, and actually I did see a picture. She was fetching.
Was she good looking?
Well, according to Soviet standards in 1959, she was probably a supermodel.
I'll tell you, the Russians, I don't know if you've ever gone to one of these, and I've done it just for research and curiosity's sake.
Simply for that.
Yeah, so they have these, it used to be the joke where they call them mail order brides.
Yeah, those are real.
But now it's like, it's internet stuff. So they have these websites, and these Russian ladies, sure enough.
How would you know?
They're on there, and they want to come to the U.S. Who wouldn't?
I want to come to the U.S., and I'm already here.
And they're all, they're relatively
Anyway, so Ludmilla was 20 years old.
Ludmilla, yes.
Ludmilla. She was found missing her tongue.
Oh.
So several of the bodies actually also appeared to be orange, and some of the clothing was said to be radioactive. So what do we have here? We have a couple of different things. So on the one hand, you have what could probably be described as natural deaths due to hypothermia, right?
I guess your initial thought would be, they went out, they kind of bit off a little more than they could chew.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
So before we get into possible theories, so we're able to actually piece together the activities of the group because they kept a log of their journey, like a diary, not that kind of log. And they also had cameras, and they were taking pictures the whole way.
Really?
Yeah. So were
they able to recover the film?
Yes, we were able to recover the film. So we're able to piece together almost by day their trip. And from the accounts and the pictures, basically you can see that the journey was going as expected. Everybody seemed to be, having a good time. And the photos and diary entries all led up to one afternoon. And that's the last photo taken shows the group setting up their tent for what's believed to be their last night. So investigators think that whatever happened to this group happened in one night and at night.
So the photos that supposedly are out there, those have been authenticated.
Yeah, I've looked at all the pictures, and they look like, I don't know, snowy Soviet pictures. But very creepily, in the background of one of the last photos taken, you can actually see the shadowy outline of a large figure lurking in the tree line watching the group. And when you look at it, it looks like a guy, like a big guy.
That wasn't Igor.
Well, the thing of it is, in the picture, you can see the group setting up a tent, and you can count, I think you can count 8 of them in the picture. 7 of them in the picture. Pardon me, which would account for one person taking the picture, and could possibly be the last person.
Yeah, because definitely there was no selfie stick involved.
No.
Okay.
So, but the picture's really creepy. If you look at it, it could be like a Yeti type figure.
So give us the name of this again, and maybe you could spell it for us. The name of the adventure, so people can look it up if they're interested.
Well, I'm not done, but it's the
I understand.
Dyatlov Pass. DYATLOV.
All right, because when we're done here today, I'm going to look it up and I'm going to check out these pictures.
Well, what we're going to do is, and this is what I hope that the audience will take away from this,
absolutely,
is look this up like you just said.
Yeah.
And look at some of these possibilities of what may have occurred and decide for themselves. Because honestly, after looking at this, I don't know what happened.
No, you don't.
It could have been any one of these things. Yeah, there's many theories. So not to get into too much detail, but these are some possibilities. Could have been an avalanche. A sudden snow landslide could have driven them out into the night snow, but then their tent would have been covered, which was not the case.
Right.
There were some people think that hostile natives could have taken them over. There's a group called the Mansai, which is indigenous people living in the area, but they were known to be peaceful and no evidence that they would attack somebody like that, and there weren't actually any tracks found. Another theory is that there was a fight. 7 guys, 2 girls.
Like amongst the group?
Yeah. They had some infighting that led to a brawl, which drove them out into the snow.
That could be possible. They had a little too much vodka.
Yep.
And they were fighting over the ladies.
Well, that goes into the next one, too, which is drugs. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine prior to doing this show.
Who was on drugs?
No, but he mentioned that, well, quite possibly. But he also mentioned that drugs may have been a thing because 1959, hallucinogenic drugs were starting to become popular in different aspects, different segments of the population, and maybe some of them had hallucinogenic drugs and they flipped out and started killing everybody or driving everybody out into the snow.
Yeah.
Another possibility, Russian military testing. The area was largely uninhabited and it was the height of the Cold War. It's possible that the Russian military was testing new weapons, and the kids got caught up in it. Hence the radiation and the concussive injuries, which there are some weapons that would do that.
So they got caught in the blast of some sort of nuclear test that was occurring out in Siberia.
Right. So all the things that I just mentioned are plausible. Then you get into the less plausible, which are aliens. Obviously, aliens is a possibility for everything. But supposedly around the time of the incident, strange glowing fireballs were seen in the Ural Mountains, somewhat near the Dyatlov Pass. Could the skiers have encountered some hostile aliens? Who knows? And then, lastly, the Yeti, like I just mentioned. So Russian folklore does say that wild mountain creatures roam the area. Was that what was seen in the last picture? Hiding in the woods and kind of checking the group out.
Did you know that Yeti is actually Himalayan for rocky place man bear that poop in woods and throw snowballs?
No, I didn't know that.
So it's quite possible that an angry Yeti, went berserk because they were infringing on his territory,
right,
and killed them all.
Well, what didn't help the investigation was this is Russia. In 1959, not a lot of information coming out of Russia, not a lot of cooperation on the part of the Russian government.
No, definitely not.
So we don't really know what happened. And actually, it's funny that this happened so long ago. It's only been uncovered in the last 10, 15 years where it's actually become known that this took place.
I think I saw something recently. There might have even been a documentary on one of the local a television channel. Exploring this a little bit, I might have caught a piece of it. So
I'd heard there was actually a movie, like not Hollywood, like a B movie that was based on this happening, but it was from the perspective of a group that was going to investigate it, and it was more like a found footage movie, like a Blair Witch Project type movie.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't seen it, but that's the Dyatlov Pass mystery. No one's quite sure what happened. These poor Russian people, and Ludmilla lost her tongue, and who knows what happened.
Speaking of we're just, obviously unfortunately we do talk a lot about movies here, but because they, it's mainstream and everybody.
Pop culture.
Yeah, pop culture kind of stuff. I don't know if you're into zombies at all, but there was a great movie.
Like into them?
Not in that sense, not in the biblical sense, but in the, the entertainment sense.
For entertainment reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like The Walking Dead.
Speaking of snowy
bears.
Death scenes and things of that sort, there was a great movie that came out recently, and if you're into if you don't mind subtitles in a movie, check out a movie called Dead Snow.
Dead Snow.
I believe it was either.
Is there a live snow?
It was either Swedish or a Norwegian movie, and it was about.
That means it's going to be good.
Kind of what you were talking about is a group of adventurers that went out into the wilderness. They were having a nice weekend, enjoying themselves in the snowy forest, and when suddenly they were overrun by Nazi zombies.
Nazi zombies.
Yes, it was. And the premise of the movie is it was a battalion or a company of Nazis that were forever lost in the wilderness, and somehow they became zombies.
Do they get into the story about how that happened?
They don't really touch on that.
Oh.
You just see the zombies come out of the wilderness, and they're wearing like SS uniforms and things of that sort, and they start attacking the youths.
So I wonder, they couldn't come up with one villain; they had to mix them.
Yeah.
So you have you have zombie.
Yes, you had Nazi zombies, which ties into what we're going to talk about later.
Well, don't give away the ending in case we don't
I
see
won't.
it.
I won't. But there was a lot of bloodshed, some red snow, and it was interesting. It was good. It was entertaining, to say the least.
Well, speaking of Russian and German, so we have a new segment of the show, and again, we're going to try to bring some culture to the listening audience.
Absolutely.
And the way we're going to do that, we're going to try to learn some foreign languages.
That's correct. So, Mike's story obviously originated in Russia.
Yes.
And the story that's coming next, what we're going to talk about, originated in Germany. So, with that, we thought we would add a little bit of flair to this. We would combine the two stories.
So what just happened is, while you can't see this because this is a radio show, I just handed Jason a piece of paper. And on the piece of paper that I handed Jason is a phrase in Russian.
You're right, awfully small. I need some spectacles to look at this. Jeez.
Well,
look at the print I gave you.
Well, see, you have more than I did. So I had one phrase.
Okay, you have one.
And you had a whole bunch of them. So maybe I'll just pick one.
You can pick one.
Okay.
Sure.
So what we're going to do for the listening audience, we've never seen these things before. We're going to try to read it in the language that it's been given to us, and then try to decipher what it is.
Correct. So just to recap, I have a Russian phrase in front of me.
Yes. So why don't you go first?
I'm not fluent in Russian, but I do have a good Russian. I can do a good Russian accent. So I've yet to see this, and this is I'm just quickly looking it over because I want to make sure that I get this right. It may take me a couple tries here.
Okay. So
I'm going to read it,
and then I'm going to tell you what it is.
Well, I'm going to try to guess what it is first, what I'm trying to say,
Yes.
and then you're going to have to tell me. Okay?
Got it.
Весная помьет земля пукьем.
Oh,
that was actually
how did
pretty
that sound?
good.
That sounded pretty good.
That sounded
All right, let me
right
think
there.
about this for a second.
Yes.
So Russian is a very difficult language to,
Of course.
to decipher. This right here says, "Hello, I need to use the restroom. Show me where the toilet is, please." Is that what it is?
Not even close.
Oh, all
What
right.
it actually is a traditional Russian toast that you would say during a celebration.
Oh.
And what it means is, let him be remembered forever. Let the ground in which he lays be like goose down.
But there's only 4 words on this
That's
paper.
that's what I did. I did a Google Translate.
Oh, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
All right, well, you pick one of my German
All right,
phrases.
so this is German now. So
Yep.
So I'm going to attempt to read something.
in your best German accent. Come on, you can do this. Pick one. There's 5.
Okay, I've got one right now.
right.
Okay, so this is in my best German.
Yep.
Welcher weg zum Bordello.
Ah.
Is that close to German?
Not really, but you could probably figure that out by one of the words.
I
in
would
there.
say that is where is the hooker house? Is that correct?
That's pretty close.
Yeah,
It's actually
bordello.
Which way to the brothel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
You win then.
So even though my accent is terrible,
You win the big prize.
I was able to decipher what that meant.
That was a good job, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, so we learned a little bit about culture and German and Russian languages, which for me, all accents typically come down to something that I've heard on Saturday Night Live or some sort of bad impersonation. I'm not real good with accents.
You know, speaking of Russians, real quick before we jump into the next topic. So, have you ever heard of anything called ASMR?
ASMR, I know.
I'm not quite sure who came up with the name, but it actually stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response.
Uh-huh.
So basically what it is, and we probably have all experienced this on some level, where you're listening to someone speak, a particular speaker, or you're hearing things, and it relaxes you to the point where you're kind of like feeling like a certain tingle down your spine a little bit.
Oh, you know what? I would akin that to sometimes when I hear people speaking,
Yes.
it makes me want to go to the bathroom. It
Okay.
relaxes you to the point where
Exactly.
you feel like, wow.
Yeah, but it just leaves you with like a sense of like just like relaxation and
yes.
euphoria almost.
Yes.
So if you go online, if you go on YouTube and you type in ASMR, you'll come up with a whole laundry list of different videos out there. It's this huge thing that people listen to And I've partaken in it in the past, where it helps you put the headphones on it, and it works best with headphones.
Okay.
Because they do a thing. It's basically binaural, which basically means like there's two microphones going, and it almost sounds like at one point they're talking in one ear and then they're talking in the next ear.
So what are they saying?
They can say anything. It's almost like role playing.
So it's not what they're saying; it's the manner in which
they do.
Saying
like
it.
barber, like if you're in a barber chair, or they
Really?
do massages.
That's bizarre.
They do like you're at the doctor and you're getting like an exam.
So it's just like normal conversations that you would have.
Correct.
But they're happening to you.
It happens to you, and it's happening right in your ear. And they breathe deeply into your ear, so it almost seems like they're there with you.
That's very strange, and I don't think that I would like that.
But the reason I brought it up is because there's a lady named Maria.
Why you laugh when you say Maria?
Because
Do you know Maria?
I don't know if my wife even knows this is going on right now.
Probably
But no,
not. Well, she doesn't listen to the show anyway.
no, probably not. But anyway, so Maria is I believe that she's Russian in origin.
Okay.
Because she does a great bunch of videos, and she has a bit of a Russian accent.
Okay.
And she's particularly good. And I've listened to her do many things. She's given me a massage. She's given me a haircut.
Now you don't have to answer this question.
Sure.
But is this like a
It's not sexual in any way. No.
gratification?
No, it's not gratifying.
No?
It's just a relaxation thing that you do.
But she just happens. Is she an attractive woman?
I guess.
So if she was ugly.
It doesn't matter
because
because I close I don't watch the video. I just listen to the sound, so it doesn't matter what she
but there
looks
is
like.
a video going on while this is happening.
There is.
Okay.
But the video for me, it doesn't matter. So, like we talked about, I last week, I have a bit of a issue sleeping, so anything that helps me relax. So Maria, who's Russian, she's she's done a class on Russian teaching. That's one of her videos.
Russian teaching.
Yeah, like teaching the language of Russian.
Oh, okay.
And it's very interesting. It's quite relaxing. So I would give it a try if you have a problem sleeping at night.
Okay, I'm gonna remember that because it's bizarre, and I probably will never do that.
No, well, you're gonna look it up as soon as you leave here. You know it.
No, I don't think I will.
All right. So the next topic we're going to jump into, and this is, and I must preface this by saying this is actually a listener request. One of our listeners goes by the name 51 Pan Man.
51 Pan Man.
Or Pan Man 51. One of the two.
What does that mean?
I believe it refers to a Harley Davidson motor, a panhead.
Okay.
I think he's into motorcycles.
Okay.
So a 51
I thought he
panhead.
was into like the ancient practice of the flathead Indians where they would they would flatten the head of the youngsters.
Right. They would bound the head so it was flat.
That's right. So I thought he was into that as some sort of fetish.
He might be. Who knows?
We'll ask him.
So he wanted to know a little bit about a German super weapon, supposedly. And we're going to talk a little bit about it in different... And honestly, you could go on for hours about this because it's quite interesting. And I have to... there's a bit of a disclaimer before we get started. So we're going to talk a little bit about Nazis and Nazi Germany. And I will just say this beforehand. Obviously, the Nazis are known for their many, many atrocities of humankind over the period of time that they were in power, and the millions of people that they killed and persecuted and things of that sort. So we're not diminishing that in any way.
Not trying to make fun of that.
Absolutely not. So it was obviously one of the largest tragedies the humankind has ever seen in its existence. So we're not diminishing that in any way. But what we'd like to talk about is some of the more secretive and interesting aspects of kind of some of the things that the Nazis were doing in terms of technology.
Well, there was a lot of weird stuff that happened around, especially towards the end of World War II, right? Where there was a lot of technology that was coming out of Nazi Germany that their scientists were working on.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But the basis of this is to talk a little bit about specifically one individual technology that they were working on towards the end of the war. And always people wonder, like, how is it that the Germans were so much more, it seemed like they were much more advanced technologically than some of the other countries that were at the time. Obviously mid-30s to early 40s, early to mid-40s, when World War II was going on. So one of the weapons that we're going to talk about, or the weapon that we're going to talk about tonight, is something called Die Glocke.
Ooh.
And that's my German, Die Glocke.
Die Glocke.
Yes. So it's actually two words, D-I-E, as like die, as we would pronounce it, and Glocke, not Glock like the gun, but with an E at the end of it.
Oh.
It actually translates to the bell.
The bell.
The bell, like you ring a bell.
Yes.
Because the device is said to have had a bell shape to it.
Okay.
And basically, and one theme that perpetuates all of the German technology that they were coming out with, obviously they had rockets and one thing that we have to be able to appreciate about kind of some of the things that they accomplished was from when I believe they took power in the early 30s, 1933 or so, up until 1945. That's what span of, what is that, 10, 12 years?
12 years.
The amazing things, the unbelievable technological things, infrastructure type things that they were able to accomplish over that short period of time. And so they were very much interested in developing different weaponry, things that could help them win the war. Not only win the war, but make them energy independent from other nations, and to be able to basically take over the world at some point. So, and that's where the Die Glocke, or however you want to pronounce it.
How do we call it? The bell.
Well, we could call it the bell. Sure.
For simplicity's sake.
Let's call it the bell. But one theme that runs through it is kind of like a three-part theme that the Germans kind of an idea that they subscribe to. So the first part, when it comes to developing any kind of technology, would be the theory, right? The theory behind it. Like what scientific theory are we going to look at that we could potentially, which takes you to number 2, which would be the engineering. So everybody can have a theory, but it's not necessarily engineerable.
Making it practical.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's pretty much what they try to do. So they have a theory. They see if they can make it practical and engineer it. And then there's also number 3, which is the esoteric component, which, obviously dealing with the occult and things of that sort.
Well, we all know, and that's a subject we could fill many shows with, was the esoteric nature of the Nazi regime and
exactly
some of the stuff that they were involved with.
And it's pretty much the founding of that particular group that was their basis of existence, and where they achieved all their ideas from. So the basic idea was, okay, ancient beliefs. Can we take these ancient beliefs, ancient mystic beliefs, and transform them into reality, so to speak? So that's where the bell comes in. So the Nazi bell, as we called it, and there were a lot of people that called it it's the basis for the Nazi flying saucer, but really that's not what it was. Okay. It was basically a bell-shaped object that things were happening on the inside of this particular.
Was it like a craft of some kind that people would ride in, or was
exactly? So that was one of the components of the bell. The first and the main component, like we talked about a minute ago, was something to be able to generate energy, to become energy independent, to generate free energy, so the German people wouldn't have to rely on outside sources to be able
like oil or whatever.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. And the second would be like an anti-gravity field propulsion. In other words, like a craft they could move around in obviously in certain ways and move efficiently without using conventional propulsion methods. And the third one, obviously, would be, which they were most interested in World War II, was the weaponization of it.
Sure.
They were looking for the biggest and baddest weapons that they could possibly come in contact with. So the thought was that if they actually were able to weaponize this particular technology, that it would make a hydrogen bomb look like basically like a kid's firecracker or something of that kind. So they in their development, they took it to a certain point, but obviously the war ended and they could only take it so far that we know of. But as some of us may know, at the end of the war, a lot of the German scientists, made their way to America.
Yes, they did.
In something called Operation Paperclip, which took a lot of somewhere upward of 1,500 scientists and brought them to America to work on some of our weapons programs and obviously the space program and things of that sort, most notably Werner von Braun, who was credited with developing the V1 and the V2 rocket.
Oh, yes, and he was also instrumental in the early space program.
That's exactly correct. He worked for NASA. That's right.
So basically they were working on some kind of a esoteric weapon / transportation device using technology that we don't even have today. Basically.
That we may not have. We may have. Who knows? Because that goes back, and I'm glad you brought that point up. So one of the interesting individuals that was obviously a member of the Nazi Party and was instrumental in this whole thing.
Was it really a party?
It wasn't a party.
It didn't seem like people had much fun.
It wasn't much fun.
No.
Because when I have a party,
It's not a Nazi party.
it's not. No, definitely not. There's plenty of drinking involved, and
well, there was probably a lot of drinking
laughing,
involved in the
and
Nazi party.
no, nothing bad though. It's all fun. It's all good
All
fun.
in good fun.
But a gentleman by the name of Hans Kammler,
Hans. Anyone named Hans is in trouble.
and Hans was an SS Obergruppenführer.
Oh, one of those.
Basically like a 4-star general.
That sounds like a dessert that you would get.
And he was basically the overseer of the Third Reich secret weapons programs, so to speak. He wasn't a very nice man.
Well, you don't rise to the ranks of Hubensieben Rattengruppen without being some kind of a jerk.
Definitely not. And he was even one of the ones that was instrumental in designing some of the concentration camps.
Oh, that's not funny.
Auschwitz, to be exact. We don't even know what happened to that guy. We don't. Supposedly he died several deaths.
Oh.
Nope. But you brought it talking about coming back to America. So one of the theories is that he came to America, came to the U.S. with this technology, and obviously handed over to the U.S. But there's never been any documentation of that. There's thoughts that he shot himself in the head, that he died in a battle, that he came to Argentina. So there's really there's no definitive proof of how he perished.
Well, let me ask you this,
Sure.
And I don't know if you're going to cover this or not, but does it say anywhere in your notes or what we're going to talk about today where the Nazis were getting all this fabulous technology? Because it seems like in a very, very short amount of time, there was an astronomical leap in technology. So was this technology come about by extraordinary means, like paranormally, or?
I don't think it was anything paranormal. And as I stated earlier, they were actually thinking more outside the box in terms of technology than the mainstream at the time, the U.S. and everybody else. Like I said, they had this esoteric twist or approach to what they were looking at, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, and when we let's jump into the bell now and exactly kind of like mechanically how it supposedly operated, and then maybe you can see how it all ties in. So the bell basically was a bell-shaped object that was approximately 16 feet tall and 13 feet wide.
Okay.
Inside the bell, there were two counter-rotating drums. Some say they were side by side. Some say they were one on top of each other. And this supposedly goes to the unified field theory. And I don't want to get too deep into science and math and all that stuff. I'm not as smart as I appear. No. Everything supposedly in the counter-rotating scene supposedly can generate energy and open doors and portals and all kinds of crazy things.
Is that like the Large Hadron Collider utilized that?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Yes. They believe that that's along the same principle as that.
Right. As particle accelerator.
Exactly. So as we know, that actually started not too long after World War II, the original idea and plans behind it. And it was cryogenically cooled. That, as we know, when we're using superconductors, you have to keep them cooled.
Well, of course.
Very, very much. You have to keep them very, 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 very cool.
They like to be cool.
Exactly. So inside the two counter-rotating drums, supposedly there was a secret serum that was a secret liquid that was inside these drums that helped facilitate the energy transfer, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it was a serum called IRR 525, serum R525, which is basically supposedly was like a.
I think Chanel makes that.
It does, and it smells wonderful.
You know, I wonder if Chanel 1 through 4 just smelled like dog crap.
So they said Chanel 5, that's the one, that's the big winner?
That's the one we're going with.
And that's the one they went with, huh?
Yep.
Oh. I'd like to get a hold of the original Chanel, see what those were like.
No, those smelled like crap.
Smelled like bologna and rotten kale.
Cheese.
Oh. So the fluid in the center of the drums, like I said, supposedly it was a red mercury or something of that kind.
You were going to say mucus.
No mucus.
Yes, you were going to say that.
I've had red mucus. It's not pleasant.
No. Then you get some penicillin at the doctor.
And possibly there was also another fluid or another element involved, and that would be thorium-229.
Oh, thorium.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because apparently the Germans were stockpiling mass amounts of thorium.
What is thorium?
It's an element of some kind, and I don't know the specifics behind it. But apparently the Germans were stockpiling it.
As a large hammer.
And the U.S., even to this day, probably really couldn't figure out why they were stockpiling it, because it required a certain technology and energy to be able to separate it to the point where they needed to make it usable.
So they needed, obviously, they go through all this trouble. They needed it for something.
They needed it for something, absolutely. And there's also the idea that it required mass amounts of electrical energy to initially power the experiment. So I have to say that the experiment. Oh, excuse me, I cleared myself in the mic again. I have a bad habit of doing
yes,
that.
You do that.
I get on a roll and I just can't get away from the microphone. It used mass amounts of electricity, obviously, alternating current, but there's a theory that it used direct current also, which, if you know from
AC/DC.
Correct, and if you know from your electrical history,
Westinghouse.
They were two battling factions when it came to the infancy of electricity. One was obviously Edison
and Nikola Tesla, right?
And Tesla, and Edison was a proponent and a promoter of direct current energy. The only problem with direct current energy is
very dangerous, right?
It's dangerous, and over a period of, like, as it increases in distance, it loses its power and its potential. So what Edison's theory, not his theory, but his plan was, in order to use direct current energy to power our houses and everything else that we know and love today, he would have had to put a power plant every 2 to 3 miles. So in every neighborhood, there'd be a power plant,
that'd be ridiculous.
Which obviously that wouldn't be practical. So along came Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
Saved the world.
And he actually was a musician who played acoustically in a song called Signs.
He did. He played the calliope in that song. Mm-hmm. And it was good. It was a good song.
Nikola Tesla, man of many talents.
But he advocated the alternating current, which AC current, which is what we use today. It's in your homes. It's everywhere. And basically what you need to do to increase the power, you just have a transfer station, and it enhances the energy as it proceeds. At the plant where this bell was being researched, supposedly they had to build a power plant there. So that tells you right there that they needed some sort of extraordinary amount of direct current energy to help propel and power this particular experiment. So some of the things that it did, and some of the eyewitness testimony,
if you will,
to some of the people that the Gross Rosen concentration camp, which I believe was nearby, and some of those people were involved in working on the experiment itself, would report seeing bell-shaped objects rise above the tree lines, come back down again, and a bright bluish or purplish hue glow would be emanating from these particular objects and such. So, and some of the other things, obviously they tested it. They brought plants in initially around the object to see what would happen. Mm-hmm. Supposedly they turned to a grayish, brownish sludge over a short period of time, just being exposed to this.
Was it like a radiation that was?
It was a radiation, yeah. It was a radiation. Supposedly gamma ray bursts were coming off of this machine. So the scientists, as smart as they were and as advanced as they were, they still couldn't figure out a way to contain it to the point where it wouldn't kill people.
Right.
Because people were, apparently of the five of the 7 initial scientists that were around the machine supposedly were killed.
That's not a good ratio.
Due to exposure, and other people had a lot of issues going forward on this particular device. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm just listening.
You're sweating over there.
I'm not sweating. I'm fine.
Are you getting gamma ray bursts emanating from your rectal?
This whole thing, when you start talking about technology, I start glossing over because I'm not as smart as I appear. And a lot of the times it goes right over my head, man.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not finding this interesting?
No, I find it interesting. I just think I just don't understand a lot of it.
So I guess the overall theme of this is being that, obviously the Germans had their hands in many different things. And technologically speaking, they were trying and they were experimenting with all kinds of different things that to this day we would think, even to this day, how would we be able to, come up with some sort of technology?
So what happened to the bell?
So nobody really knows what happened to the bell. There's never been any, it's not like they've recovered one.
So the ultimate goal, we still don't know what their ultimate goal with the device was or what happened to it.
No.
Okay.
It's all speculation. It's all theory. I mean, a lot of we talked about, a lot of the scientists came to America. Some of them didn't. A lot of the Nazis, a lot of the Germans at that time that were obviously being hunted by the Allies to stand trial for war crimes and such,
right,
made their way to different countries. A lot of them went to South America,
right,
Argentina. That's one of the theories, too, that Kammler made his way with the Bell technology to Argentina, where he obviously lived out his days. And
now, isn't there and I know this from just doing a little bit of looking into it, isn't there some physical evidence that there was a testing facility near where there was supposedly this was seen, right? Because you can still see evidence of that.
That's true. There's well, they can't. There's things there, but they can't attribute it specifically to that particular project.
Oh, okay.
There's one called, I think there's a device, not a device, but a structure called the henge.
It's like a big ring thing.
Yeah, it's a big concrete ring
Right.
that supposedly, when they were testing outdoors, was housing this device. So that's one of the things. But they can never, there's obviously different theories as to what that was used for.
Right.
So there's no concrete. Going back to concrete, there's no concrete specific evidence.
No, but at the end of the war, there was a lot of stuff going on, and who knows what disappeared into the clutches of whether it was the United States or Russia or whoever else was the victor or the escaping Germans. You don't know what was taken, what was destroyed, what there was a lot of confusion during those times.
Exactly. So, what's the overriding theme today with that, you think?
The overriding theme is that we don't know a whole lot about a lot of things.
We don't. And just touching briefly on something, going back to Mr. von Braun, who came to the U.S. and helped in the Apollo space missions.
Did he make razors too?
The Braun razor, yes. It's an electric razor. It's a foil electric razor.
Foil electric lasers don't work.
I had one that did work.
No.
And it stopped working when my dog chewed it.
No, you didn't have one that
and
worked.
Then it bent the blade, and I tried to use it on my face, and it pulled the skin off.
No, you don't. They don't
stitches.
work. The electric razors just don't work.
I like the electric razor.
Yeah, because you're lazy. But in actuality, the real electric, they don't work.
But Mr. von Braun, I don't think maybe he did invent that at some point, but in his later life.
Usually you see the Braun commercials around Christmas time and Father's Day.
Not Brawny, though. Brawny is something
Brawny is something. No, but did you hear the controversy about the Brawny paper towel?
It doesn't absorb like they say it does?
No. It's even more nefarious than that.
Oh, boy.
So the controversy about the Brawny towel now is that it's a misogynist, that it is a man that is the symbol of the Braun. It's the big lumberjack looking dude.
Yeah, he kind of looks like the Rusty Jones guy. Remember that guy?
Rusty Jones. Yeah, looks kind of like yeah.
Yeah.
So that's misogynistic. And now there's packaging that has a woman as the Brawny.
But here's the issue with that, and we'll go with the Mr. Clean too. Mr. Clean was the big bald buff.
Yeah, but
guy.
Mr. Clean looks like he would be inhabiting Tango Night at the Blue Oyster.
But here's the thing, I mean, listen, I hate to get into, I don't want to get into all that sort of stuff, but. Men generally speaking, they have a lot more testosterone than a woman.
Physically stronger. Largely.
You see
there are strong women.
There are strong women.
Absolutely.
There are powerful women. There are very athletic women. But generally speaking, the bodybuilders and the weightlifters and the powerlifters, the strong people are the men.
Generally.
Right? I think that's all they're trying to convey. They're not trying to say men are better than women.
No, I agree.
At all. They're just trying to say this is a beef, buffy guy who's going to clean your countertops.
You know what I've determined?
What's that?
I've determined that in today's day and age, which you can't have an age without a day in front of it, is people go around looking for things to be offended by.
Exactly.
They're not actually offended by it. They're playing a role. Everybody plays a role, and for a certain segment of the population, they like to be offended, and they look for things to be offended by.
Honestly, I haven't been offended by many things in my life.
No.
But although I should, and this brings up a good topic, and I think we'll probably close on this today.
Okay.
What are your and I always bring these things up because I like to get your opinion on this. I like to get a different sense about things. So, off and on throughout my adult life, I've always, I've been relatively active. I run, I go to the gym and things of that sort.
Yep.
So, recently, probably within the past 6 months, I joined a new gym.
Okay.
And I've been trying to get myself back in. I've been whipping myself back into shape.
I whip myself too, but for different reasons.
Trying to burn off the extra, junk around my midsection and things of that sort.
Yes.
So I've been really taking it seriously, and this is important because you got to get in a routine, take it seriously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Got a habit going.
I go to the gym, and normally my routine is I go in the gym, I go into the facility, and I go directly to whatever machines or weights or treadmills I want to use.
Okay.
I avoid the bathroom at all costs and the locker room.
Oh yeah, nobody goes in the bathroom.
I don't want to go in there.
No.
On occasion, I have to go in there because I have to relieve myself.
If it's an emergency.
In order to have an efficient workout.
Yes.
I go in the locker room. Now, let me just back up 1 second. I'm a grown man.
Yes.
I have a military background, as you do as well, Mike.
Yes.
I went in the military as a young lad. I've been in various situations and barracks and
Is this about some kind of an awakening? I don't want to hear about
no open showers and
again,
open toilet stalls and things
headed
of that
the
sort.
wrong way.
No. So I've seen grown men naked. It doesn't offend
Again,
me in the least.
This is stuff that we probably shouldn't be
But
discussing.
in the military, you're forced in situations that you have no control over, right?
That's true. Again, awakenings.
Hold on. In adult life, I'm going to say from a man's perspective, I'm a grown man.
It's a man's world.
Okay, you have control over your immediate area, and you can do whatever the heck you choose in America, right?
Yes.
Why is it that when I go in the men's locker room just to walk through to get to the bathroom to use the facility, there are naked men running around, and they're having everyday conversations. They're having birthday suit, vocal conversations about everyday things.
Yeah, I've sensed that myself. And unfortunately, it's not just you. I've encountered this too. There's usually one or two naked men roaming about the locker room facilities. For some reason, they decide they don't want to either finish undressing or get dressed. They don't. They hover in that middle area.
It doesn't make sense to me. I walked through a conversation the other day. Two grown men, mind you, standing within inches of each other, naked.
Wow.
Toweling off their heads, speaking about the weather and how most recent sporting event.
Swords almost touching.
Like nothing was happening. So I walked in. I used the bathroom.
Did you walk between them?
I didn't walk between
Maybe they were
them.
waiting for you to walk
I
between
averted
them.
my eyes and walked around them just the other day, and then I'll just close on this, mind you.
Yeah.
Once again, I went
They're
in
usually an old person.
no,
They're older.
Oh, not this time.
Oh.
I walk in. Now, let me set the scene for you quickly. There are two urinals side by side with a divider in between.
There's
Thank
only
God
two.
for the divider.
Okay.
Two urinals.
Yep.
Then to the left of the urinals, perpendicular to the urinals, are two small sinks,
Yes.
like that you would wash your hands in after you use the
That's
bathroom.
usually what sinks are for, yeah.
So I walk in, and I use the far urinal to the right,
Okay.
the furthest away, and I look to the sink area. Just as my eyes wandered in, there's a gentleman, a butt naked gentleman,
Okay.
from head to toe,
No towel or anything.
standing in the first up against the first sink.
Okay.
So there's two sinks. The second sink is against the wall,
Yep.
naked completely.
Yep.
I can see his bare buttocks.
What was he doing?
Shaving
Shaving what?
his face, shaving his
Naked?
face naked.
No towel or nothing?
No, none at all. So here's my conundrum now.
Bizarre.
So I used the bathroom. I haven't used the gym yet. So I have to wash my hands.
Now you have to go wash your hands.
So somehow I have to squeeze my body
Next to the
between
naked man.
the bare buttocks of this man at the sink and the next sink over.
Maybe he was waiting for you to do that.
Why couldn't he at least get to the other sink?
Because he wanted to contact you.
Does he do this at his home?
No.
Does he shave in his... It's just, mind you, this is a Saturday morning. He couldn't leave the gym and go shave and get dressed. He had to do it at the gym.
Some people feel really comfortable in places like that, apparently. I don't feel that comfortable in my own home. I wouldn't even do that in my own bathroom alone with the locked door.
Exactly.
I
Who
wouldn't do
shaves
that.
naked?
I don't know.
You don't wear any clothes, stand in the mirror and shave?
I don't
do
know.
you?
There's bizarre people out there.
All right. Give us your feedback, people.
Yeah, you know what? We would like some feedback for the show. We have gotten some great suggestions, some great feedback, some great things coming from the listeners. We would like to hear more. You can always contact us at our email address, which is TheEoNProject@yahoo.com. That's TheEon Project@yahoo.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're looking at doing, too, is hopefully in the near future getting a couple in-studio guests
Yes.
live with us. To talk
Hopefully not the naked guy from the gym.
No. I
Although I bet he'd come.
his image is burned in my synapses for the rest of my life.
He's waiting for you.
So we're going to have some live guests coming, and if you have any listener suggestions you want to hear about a topic, just like 51 Pan Man did, and we'll do that going forward as well.
And I wanted to ask, too, because we are live on the iTunes site and Google Play, if you find us on iTunes and iTunes Store and Google Play, give us a review, give us a rating, because it does help our standing. And the more people that see the ratings and the stars and see the reviews, the more people will listen, and the more popular our program will be.
That's correct. And, we're attempting to take over the world via the internet here.
Slowly.
And we're trying to build a loyal but devoted
Yes.
following going forward. So when we're on the big train to Coolville, hopefully you all will be on it with us.
And hopefully not naked.
All right. So We'll be back again soon, talking about some couple more interesting and mysterious and topics, and some shenanigans abound. So just remember, the truth exists. Ladies